Another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And tonight we got someone that I've been wanting to get for a long time, and I'm so glad he's finally on the channel, bringing his great insight on the Baltimore Ravens and everything NFL. That is Jose Verduzco. Probably butchered,
yep.
Probably butchered the last name, but no, I appreciate you for joining, and we got an action-packed show tonight. For the first half hour, it's pretty much going to be Jose and I talking it up about the Ravens and the Washington football team and the NFL draft. And then the second half of the show will be me talking about the Washington football team and the draft that's coming up tomorrow night. But with that being said, I do want to get right into the questions. And the first question I want to ask is, Jose, could you first please introduce yourself to the DMV Sports Zone family out there for watching this live episode of Washington Football Weekly?
Absolutely. And once again, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely appreciate that. So, Jose Verduzco is the name, formerly known as Joe Nubo, as a lot of people do know me. You know, a lot of people still call me Nubo. I'm totally fine with that, if that's what you want to do. But I am using my real name now. So, yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Jose Verduzco. You can find me on Twitter at NF Podcast Live, I believe is my handle still. I tried to change it, but they didn't let me. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, I'm not really active on Instagram or TikTok, even though I have them. But yeah, pretty much if you search up Jose Verduzco on YouTube, you should be able to find my stuff, mostly Ravens stuff. I am trying to expand to other things now, you know. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, you know, I'm here to talk football. The draft is tomorrow, so that's why we're here, man. I'm hype.
Yeah, tomorrow night. And before even getting to our two teams and, I mean, the draft news, everything that broke over the last week involving our teams, I do want to first say, as a Baltimore Raven fan yourself, and then as a Washington, Redskins, but not football team fan, I guess, first off, could we just, talk about, the rivalry over the last couple of years? Because I know you're out there in California, but in the DMV, I know it's a huge sort of battle the beltways type of rivalry. I know it only happens once every 4 years, but a lot of people get juiced up in the area to watch the game. So I was just wondering, what are your fondest memories of the rivalry over the last couple of years, over the last decade? And if you could share that a little bit.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it's funny because every time people wonder, I'm not actually in Baltimore. Everybody always assumes, oh, it's a Ravens fan. He's from, you know, the DMV area, or he's from Maryland over there. No, I'm from California, and I know it's weird to be a California Ravens fan, but what do you want me to do? I just am. So I definitely can't necessarily totally speak on the Washington-Baltimore rivalry as much as I'm sure a lot of other Ravens fans could. So, you know, if you consider me a bad Ravens fan, I totally understand it. Again, I don't even know how almost 11,000 people decided to subscribe to my channel when I literally...
The insight, man. It's the insight.
Yeah, I guess it's the insight, man. You know, I watch the Ravens and then just say my opinions. For some reason, people like it. So, but yeah, man. So I want to actually, I mean, because it was this past season, correct? We played, the Ravens pretty much dominated Washington.
Yeah.
Not really
Dwayne
much
Haskins
to talk about.
With the bag.
Yeah. He did all right. He threw for 300. You know, he did a lot better than I thought he would.
Yeah. I felt like a lot of those stats were, I don't know if you heard about what happened after the game and how he was sort of bragging a little bit about his first 300-yard performance, and that ultimately got him benched. But that's I don't know why, but for some reason, I just remember Dwayne Haskins and him just sucking pretty much for most of the game until that last couple drives where put up some stats. But yeah, the Ravens, man, Lamar Jackson was running all over the field on that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, not really much to talk about, but I did want to talk about the previous matchup. I'm pretty sure it was the one right before that. It was, I think it ended 16-10 or something like that, if you remember the one I'm talking about. Oh my God, that was such a, especially for me, for the Ravens side, such a frustrating game because we had so many opportunities to put that one away. We probably should have won that game multiple times, and we just kept shooting ourselves in the foot. The one thing that sticks out to me that I remember very clearly was C.J. Mosley, our middle linebacker at the time.
Yeah.
He had a touchdown basically. I believe it was a pick or it might have been a fumble. I don't entirely remember the play, but I know he ran it back and then the fumble out of the end zone. He instead of either falling down at the 1 or just extending a little bit more, he decided to throw the ball into the end zone, and as we know, that rule is that it's a touchback for the other team. So there was that moment, and I think the end of the game, there was Brashad Perriman, our former first-round pick.
Yeah, he played here for a little bit.
He did. He's been everywhere by now, hasn't he? So I thought he got his feet in bounds, but apparently the refs didn't think so, so they didn't give him the touchdown at the end of the game, which probably would have won the game for my Ravens, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, there was that game, man. That was a pretty stressful game on my part.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting game. I will say, though, in terms of storylines, a 2012 matchup, I don't know if you remember that, RG3 going out.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in this area still remembers that Haloti Ngata tackle. Pretty much was the end of RG3 from that point on. And then Kirk Cousins, cold, right? Coming out cold and slinging the ball over the fields, getting a touchdown, I believe, at the end of the game. Ultimately won us the game in overtime, I believe. But, I mean, there have been some pretty good matchups, and I'm looking forward to, Washington, because Baltimore has always been good, if we're going to be honest. But Washington actually getting slowly but surely to Baltimore's level.
They look good.
It's being a really good rivalry. Yep. Yeah.
And I don't want to take over, but what are you expecting from Fitzpatrick, man? Is he your guy? At least for this year, right?
I mean, all I know is that he's a very good stopgap quarterback for us, right? Yep. We're obviously, we don't have our franchise quarterback right now. Potentially could get it tomorrow night. We'll see how things pan out. Even though right now it makes it, Ron Rivera has been adamant about, building a team around the quarterback and then ultimately getting that guy later on. I'm a little worried because obviously we've seen Fitztragic way too many times over the last couple of years. But I will say this, over the last 2 years specifically, he's gotten much better at limiting his turnovers. I believe he had the 5th best QBR last year, actually, out of any NFL quarterback. And albeit he wasn't starting too many games, but he did look pretty good with the Dolphins. We saw that last play. His face mask was getting ripped off, and he threw that ball down the field. Yeah, that was amazing. But I don't know, man. It all depends on what happens pretty much the next couple of days with the draft. If we could get maybe 1 or 2 more playmakers at the wide receiver position or the tight end position, I think we could help Ryan Fitzpatrick out, and I think potentially we could have that Jets year that he had a couple of years back where he took the team and they ultimately were 10-6 actually. Maybe we could have a similar type of year in DC, make the playoffs and do some, hopefully could do some Fitz magic in the playoffs. But I'm just a little worried because obviously we don't know what we're going to get every single week from him. And it's going to be tough, right? The moment you start depending on him, the moment you start expecting things out of him,
that's when it gets bad. But hey, you got Heineke, right? That was his name.
Heineke?
Maybe he takes over. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Small sample size, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I do want to shout out everybody in the chat. Patrick West, Little Fish, whose comment is up here. Fields to DC. I mean, I guess we could talk about that right now. And Trey Lance. Where do you think these guys will end up tomorrow night? Do you think Justin Fields has a chance of actually falling, as some people expect? Do you think Trey Lance? I mean, this was one of the questions I prepared. Maybe might be the number 3 pick, or is Mac Jones the 49ers a foregone conclusion at this point? What are your thoughts on the top 5 quarterbacks really as a whole?
Sure. So before I get into that, I want to give a shout out to my guy Ing Raven. Shout out to Ing Raven. So are the 49ers really going to draft Mac Jones? Like, honestly. Like, I just don't understand it. Now, go ahead.
Even as a Bama fan, like, roll Tide, right? All that. I still don't want the 49ers to draft Mac Jones. Like, but go ahead, sorry.
No, but, and let me just preface this because I know, like, I am not at all a draft expert. I don't consider myself that. I do like to listen to a lot of podcasts that say a lot about these prospects, and I do occasionally watch tape, but I don't consider myself a expert here. But really, Mac Jones, And I think that the stigma with Justin Fields is the fact from where he's coming from, right? Ohio State. A lot of that is because of your guy, right, Mr. Haskins. And obviously, previously, they just never have had a good quarterback coming out of Ohio State. But I just would be almost flabbergasted if Mac Jones is actually the pick. But regardless, Trey Lance to me is an interesting prospect. I'm not sure how far he will fall. I mean, it would be a miracle if any of these quarterbacks honestly falls to you guys, to Washington. I don't see that happening because you guys have, what, pick 19?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, no quarterback. If anybody falls to, like, the Patriots, for example, no quarterback is getting past them, let's be honest. But it's interesting because the Falcons are in an interesting situation. You still have Matt Ryan, who's still playing well, but, you know, it's about coming up to that time. And they could potentially take a quarterback. I know Kyle Pitts seems to be the favorite there right now, but they're probably in the sweepstakes there. And aside from that, I mean, you have a top 10 that the Lions could maybe take a quarterback there, either Trey Lance or Justin Fields. So I could definitely probably see all 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10, to be honest with you. I think it could happen.
Yeah, especially with the well, as it is right now, the dire quarterback class next year. I don't know if you've heard about it. I mean, the Oklahoma quarterback, that's supposed to be the QB1 next year.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I mean, as a Washington fan, I kind of want the team to trade up and get that quarterback because I know next year it's just, I mean, obviously you can always have a guy like Joe Burrow or a guy like a Zach Wilson comes out of nowhere and wows everyone. But the odds of that happening, you know, in an already limited class, I just don't see that happening. So hopefully Washington could trade up. I see some comments in the chat asking about the Ravens and Lil Fish asking, who do you think will fill the hole in pass rushing for Baltimore? And that's actually a question that I had prepared. So
okay, there you go. It works out. That's a great question because this has been a debate amongst the Ravens flock as well. It's not only like everybody else looking in. Yeah, because the Ravens, let's be honest, we already struggled to really get to the quarterback last year with both Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue. So now they're gone. They're both gone. And you did bring back Tyus Bowser, who is definitely not a household name. But he's a contributor. He's solid. I don't think he's like a double-digit sack guy by any means, but I think he's going to be a very good player for this scheme. You also have veteran Pernell McPhee. And he plays solid as long as he's on a snap count, type of pitch count type of thing. So yeah, and then we have Jalen Ferguson, who his nickname is the Sack Daddy. But I call him the pressure daddy because he doesn't get sacks. He just gets pressures. You know what I mean? We need to see him finish a little bit more. We'll see if he can develop. I'm hoping he can develop into something. I'm not entirely sure. But yes, edge rusher is absolutely one of the biggest needs on this team. Me personally, I would much rather address the offensive line and the wide receiver position before edge rusher.
Brown.
Yeah. Right. Just lost Orlando Brown. And so, yeah, I think edge rusher is definitely a big need for the Ravens, but I would much rather address the offense first. Like, get your offense straight. The secondary is phenomenal for the Ravens, you know, and plus Wink Martindale, our defensive coordinator, loves to scheme up blitzes, so I'm not too worried about the edge rusher as much as a lot of other Ravens fans are. I will say that.
I don't know if you see the comment right now, but
Ryan Kerrigan?
I mean, that kind of hits close to home. I mean, got his jersey and all that, but maybe
that's your guy, huh?
Up the road, up 95.
It makes a lot of sense.
Baltimore.
And it's definitely a Ravens type of signing for sure, like a Ryan Kerrigan. He's someone that a lot of Ravens fans have talked about, or Justin Houston is another one. Yeah, I could totally see the Ravens, you know, addressing the position with a veteran, especially if they're not able to get one of the top-tier edge rushers that they like tomorrow.
And this is something that's been nagging me for the last couple of years, since Lamar Jackson's been a Baltimore Raven. When are you guys going to fix your freaking wide receiver situation, man? Like, I'm tired of seeing... Like, while they're talented, they're not wide receiver ones, right? Like, a guy like Marquise Brown, I wasn't even high on him coming into the draft. Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously he does have talent. He does have the speed, and maybe he could ultimately boom, this year. We'll see. But so far, hasn't really started out fast. I mean, you got a guy like Willie Snead, who's been sort of productive the last couple of years. You got, I believe Miles Boykin is on the team, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Some other guys. What is going on? I mean, AB was someone who a lot of people linked to the Ravens. Obviously, that's not happening. Nope. Julio Jones, I know you put out a video. Do you think potentially maybe after the draft or maybe even during the draft that could happen? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'd love the Julio Jones thing, but I don't know if it's going to happen anymore. No, but look, wide receiver has been a problem for the Ravens pretty much since their inception, since 1996. I don't know. Here's a little fun fact for you guys, and it's maybe not as fun for me, but it's fun for you guys if you're a Washington fan. The leader in Ravens history in receiving yards is Michael Jackson, and he was on the team in 1996. No, not the Michael Jackson you're thinking of. Michael Jackson, the wide receiver, in 1996, which was the first year that the Ravens were actually born. That was the first year that they were made into a team. So ever since then, we haven't had a receiver eclipse, I believe it's 1,200 yards. So think about that.
My God.
Yeah. So it's always been a problem. Year in and year out, we're always like, okay, who's the next wide receiver that we're looking at? The one year I can really look to that we actually had a solid wide receiving core was when we won the Super Bowl. We had Anquan Bolden, Torrey Smith, we had Jacoby Jones. Those guys were playmakers, man. And going into this year, we talk about it. You have Hollywood Brown. Again, he deep threat. He's able to get open down the field. He makes some big plays every now and again.
When he's healthy.
When he's healthy, makes some good catches. Not a number one, right? And Miles Boykin has, I don't want to say he's a bust because he's a third-round pick. He can't really bust, in my opinion, mid-round picks. But he definitely hasn't lived up to what we were hoping for Miles Boykin because he's 6'4", like 220. He's a big body, but he plays like he's 5'9". Like he really does. He just doesn't have physicality. Aside from that, you have another guy that we drafted last year, Devin Duvernay. Ravens didn't really use him at all in his rookie season. I would like to see more out of him. But yeah, I mean, wide receiver is clearly a big need for this team. Even though we did just sign Sammy Watkins, it's not a bad signing. I think it'll be decent, but yeah, I definitely want to see the Ravens add at least one more piece. And whether that comes tomorrow or Julio, I would be a fan. So
yeah, I will say this though. I mean, we talked about the wide receiver position, but come on, like I for so many years have been jealous of how the Ravens have constructed their teams, have been consistent winners, no matter the quarterback, no matter who's on that defense. It just amazes me, right? And I know John's in the chat right now from Sports Talk Chicago, but I think it was a couple years ago. It might have been the 3-13 season for Washington. I remember posting on Facebook how it's so crazy to me how two NFL organizations about a 45-minute drive away from each other at that point were the complete like polar opposites of one another and how they were run and how they, stuck up for their fans and really did their fans right and stuff. So, I mean, how has that been being a fan of a winning franchise for so long? Yeah, I know there are a couple of Washington football team fans out there right now in the chat, but can you educate us on what it's been like?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to like laugh at Washington or anything like that, but I think I will say, let me just say for Washington, I think they're going in the right direction right now because I remember just a couple years ago, people were talking about Washington like, oh my God, like Dan Snyder is ruining this team, like he sucks. Like,
still is. Yeah.
Well, he probably. I mean, again, that's on you guys, but hey, you have Ron Rivera. He's a very, very good coach, very well-respected coach. You guys just made the playoffs, albeit at 7-9 in the NFC least, but still, it counts. And had an impressive showing, right, against the eventual Super Bowl champions. So, and that D-line, man, oh boy. I mean, I think anybody in the league would want your D-line. Let's be honest, right? So, yeah, Washington is going in a good direction. But for Baltimore, it's kind of like a catch-22 thing, right? because with success comes expectations, almost, especially from the fan base, right? So if a player is not Ray Lewis, if a player is not Ed Reed, then they suck, basically, is how the Ravens fan base considers it. That's not everybody, obviously, but a majority of them I've seen. Like, if they're not at that level, then, get them out of here. They're trash, right? So, in a way, like, it's cool to hold your team to high regard and expect success year in and year out. Yeah. But it can also be, like, another thing, like, if something bad happens in a game, oh my God, like, this guy sucks, get him out of here. Like, and it's just, it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating because you go on Twitter and you want to remain positive, but then, someone tweets out, F this team, right? So, it's kind of like a catch-22 type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. And I also, I was just like remembering the Facebook post all of a sudden. I don't know why, but I also remember saying that if I was like born like a 30-minute drive like up north, then I would have been born a Ravens fan and all that. But again, like, it just speaks to the Ravens being a successful team for so many years, and hopefully again Washington could potentially give you guys a run for your money in the area and potentially rack up the wins. But I do see some comments. Lil Fish once again asking about the offensive line, because I know you talked about that a little bit earlier, but the center issues, so more so the interior offensive line, do you think Baltimore could potentially improve upon those positions in the draft? And what are your thoughts on that?
All right, so for center, and I hate to go too deep into this, but I mean, you asked, right? So look out for this guy that probably nobody knows him yet, but Tristan Colon Castillo is his name, all right? This is an undrafted center that came in last year, and he was like the one center that we had that played for a limited amount of time that looked decent, right? Because when we had Matt Skura come in, he was just coming off an injury. He did not look good most of the time, bad snaps. They had Patrick McCarry, who was an undrafted guard, moved him to center. Again, bad snaps. It just can't happen, especially considering the type of system that we run on offense, and most of the time Lamar is either out of the shotgun or out of the pistol, right? So you need to be able to snap the ball. You can't just throw it over his head because then it ruins the entire play. So, yeah, but look out for Tristan Colon Castillo. I think he's penciled in as starter right now, and he looked decent last year. I'm not expecting too much. However, that doesn't mean that you don't draft a center. Like, if you're in a position, in a good spot, and someone falls that you like, draft a center still. It's going to be tough because we have those 2 first-round picks. We don't have a second-round pick, and we don't pick until like the very end of the 3rd round. So I'm not sure if a center is going to fall to the 3rd, but maybe the Ravens could trade down that 31st pick. I could see something like that happening, but if the Ravens don't draft a center, I'm fine with TCC starting, as they call him. So.
Okay. I mean, you talked about the 2 picks that the Ravens now have after the Orlando Brown trade. Who do you think the Ravens might be looking into with those 2 picks? I believe they're at 27 and 31, if I'm not mistaken.
27 and 31, yeah.
Do you think a wide receiver potentially could be one of those 2 picks? As someone looking from the outside in, hopefully a receiver could be one of those 2 picks.
Yeah, ideally, I think that everybody wants a wide receiver. But the thing is, now, the 2 receivers that everybody has been talking about for Baltimore, Rashad Bateman and Terrace Marshall. Those are like the 2 big names that everybody's talking about. At this point, Rashad Bateman might fall to 27, but I don't think it'll happen because he's pretty damn talented. And Terrace Marshall, honestly, I haven't really seen much about him, so I can't speak on him too much. What I do understand about him is he's a bigger body, which would be nice to add to the wide receiving core because that's pretty much exactly what we need. But I don't know, man. Again, sorry, my dog is shaking himself over there. Again, we have like 3 pressing needs on this team, right? Offensive line, edge rusher, and wide receiver. If you can address 2 out of those with those first 2 picks, I would be extremely happy. Even if we don't get a wide receiver, I'm then going to assume that hopefully we trade for Julio Jones. Now, I know it came out that he might not be traded. He might not be expected to be traded, so that puts the Ravens a little bit more in a pickle at the wide receiver position. But I definitely want to see at least 2 of those 3 positions that are super pressing for the Ravens addressed tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't going to elaborate more on this or ask you again because we sort of touched on it in the beginning with the top 5 quarterbacks and stuff. But I mean, the chat is going on fire right now with the whole Trey Lance and their takes on Trey Lance and his potential in the NFL. And I think this is a fairly good comparison. I don't know if you think so as well, but Trey Lance, put the fact that he's my twin aside, right? Same birthday, everything. Put that aside. I'm a huge fan of Trey Lance, and I think he has a lot of potential to be a stud in this league. And I think he's very much reminiscent of a guy who I might have been in the minority of. Not might have. I was in the minority of being a fan of, and that was Josh Allen coming into the league. And I think they're very similar quarterbacks. They might even be drafted in the same position come tomorrow night. What are your thoughts on that comparison? Do you think potentially Trey Lance might, become an MVP contender in a couple of years?
So Washington, I'm assuming the fan base is pretty high on Trey Lance, is what I'm gathering.
Okay.
So let me answer your question with another question, okay? Would you guys be willing to trade up for Trey Lance? And if so, what would you give up?
So if you're asking me, I would be willing to trade up
Sure.
to the number 8 pick. The problem is we're probably going to have to give up a first rounder next year, maybe a second round pick, maybe another first, but we'll see how far we have to trade up. But I think with the way the Panthers have dealt with things with the quarterback position, trading away Teddy Bridgewater, now pretty much solidifying Sam Darnold as the quarterback, I want Washington to trade up. Like I said earlier in the show, I think next year's quarterback class is not going to be good. Of course, we have the free agents, right? We have a guy like Aaron Rodgers who's probably going to be up soon and some other guys as well. But I just think the smart play would be to trade up and get a quarterback this year. The problem is there have been a lot of reports out there that say that Ron Rivera and co are not interested in trading up. But then again, it's the draft. Cannot believe anything you hear really about what goes on. So I think at the end of the day, though, Washington won't trade up for a quarterback. Maybe, or at least the 8. If a quarterback falls to maybe 12 or 13, maybe to the Chargers pick, potentially Washington could trade up. But all the way to 8, I think that's a little far-fetched.
Sure. I could see that. I think, like, if you're in a spot where he somehow falls to, like, 14 right before the Patriots, I think you should make that move, I think it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. It'd be crazy, too, if the Patriots draft Justin Fields.
Oh, man.
1 year of lackluster quarterback play. They
just quit. We're done. The Patriots are back.
Yeah. Speaking of AFC contenders, and this will probably be my second to last question because I know you have to go. But what were your thoughts about the Ravens trading a guy like Orlando Brown, right, a Pro Bowl tackle, to a team that they're going to be contending with for an AFC championship for the next, I don't know how long, right? As long as Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on like all of that, and do you think it's a good move?
So the whole Chiefs thing, my initial reaction was like, really? You're trading him to the Chiefs of all teams? Seriously. But, I've since slept on it. It's been a while since it happened. We knew he was going to get traded regardless, right? That was going to happen. I'm assuming that was probably the best offer that we had on the table. I'm kind of surprised at it because I thought someone else would maybe trade their first-round pick for Orlando Brown, but I'm assuming that the Chiefs gave the Ravens the best offer. So Eric DeCosta, our general manager, just said, all right, let's take it. So, Yeah, I hated that we traded him to the Chiefs because obviously I was a person that really wanted to keep Orlando Brown, but at the same time I knew it wasn't possible because he wanted out. He didn't want to play right tackle anymore. I understand.
Oh,
So, what I am interested to see about Orlando Brown, because I think he's a good left tackle. Don't get me wrong.
hmm
I mean, he played that at Oklahoma. He knows what he's doing there. But from what we've seen, at least he does a very good job in the running game, run blocking. But in the pass blocking, I don't know if it's a heavy passing scheme like the Chiefs do run. Will he be as successful? And I'm not at all doubting Orlando Brown, but
yeah.
that's just a question that I might have. But I'm happy for him. I think it worked out for every team involved in the trade, and especially since we'll see what the Ravens do with the first round draft picks tomorrow. If they make some good moves, I'll probably be a little bit more happier with the move. But yeah, initially I hated it for sure. I definitely hated it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And the last question, as promised, I usually like to say this for the end of the streams. I'm going to ask you this question as well.
Okay.
And it's a two-parter. So one, what do you think the future of the Washington football team looks like, right?
Okay.
And then two, what does the future of your Baltimore Ravens look like? What does it have in store? Is there a Lombardi Trophy, for the DMV within the next couple of years? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. Well, for Washington, I mean, again, I think that they're going in the right direction. It just all depends. Again, what Fitzpatrick are you getting? Are you getting Fitzmagic or are you getting Fitztragic, right? That's going to be the biggest storyline, I think, for Washington. And Washington is in an interesting position because you're in a division with the Cowboys. They're getting Dak back. I'm not... See, a lot of people love Dak. I'm not super high on Dak as a lot of people are, but apparently, like he makes the Cowboys a Super Bowl team, right? At least that's what the media says. But aside from that, you have the Giants. They've made some decent moves, but I just don't believe at all in Daniel Jones. Yeah, no, they have a good team. I just don't believe at all in their quarterback. And then you have, why am I blanking? Oh, the Eagles, of course, and they're probably going to be trash.
That's why you're blinking.
Yeah, of course, because they don't even matter. No, but I definitely could see Washington competing for the division, and I mean, they could potentially make noise in the playoffs. But again, just if they had like a better quarterback situation, I would feel so much more confident in putting my faith in Washington, honestly. But hey, over the next couple years, you never know. Somehow the Washington team gets a good quarterback there, and they will be a pretty big threat in the NFC, I believe, because that D-line, man, that front seven, that's going to win you a lot of games, in my opinion. So, as for the Ravens side, it's tough to say because I think that the mindset is, and it should be Super Bowl, right? Because you have Lamar Jackson, young quarterback on a rookie contract, but we just haven't been able to get it done in the postseason. That's the biggest question mark I think about this team right now. Can they come up clutch when necessary, when we need everybody to be working together as a unit, as a team? Can you do it when you need it to happen? And that's the biggest question mark. The roster is, I would probably say, one of the best in the NFL. I don't think I'm off base there. We do have holes, obviously, but a lot of teams do. Pretty much every team does, right? So, but yeah, man, as long as you have Lamar, in my opinion, you're going to be competing. You're probably going to make the playoffs year in and year out. But it's just the playoff time, man. I need to see it happen. We got that first playoff win. We got that monkey off our back last year, and I was so happy it was against the Tennessee Titans out of all teams. So, but yeah, man, we just, like, that Bills game was just a travesty. It was terrible because everything that could have possibly went wrong at the worst possible moments, right? So we just can't have that happen. The coaches need to be on, like, focusing and not making bad calls, bad decisions, as they do, especially in the playoffs. Lamar, he needs to not miss throws when they're when he should be able to make some of those throws, and just everybody needs to play up to their level. So yeah, I do think that the Ravens' ceiling is probably Super Bowl, but we got to see it, man. I think that not only does the NFL need to be proven that the Ravens can do it, but also the fan base needs to be proven that the Ravens can do it, right? So, yeah, I mean, these two teams in the DMV, man, looking pretty good, I'd say.
It's what I like to hear. But again, Jose, thank you so much for joining. And as I told you guys a little bit earlier, we are going to have this part be the first part, and then second part I'll talk a little bit about the Washington football team. But again, Jose, thank you so much for joining. It's been great hearing your Ravens insight for the first time on this DMV Sports Zone channel. And everybody, if you haven't already, go sub up his channel. I made sure to put the link in the description. Very great insight. And any last words, Jose, before you head out?
Oh, absolutely, man. I appreciate you for having me. Shout out to the DMV Sports Zone. You guys, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Feel free to also subscribe to my channel. I know I'm a Ravens fan, but I also sometimes I talk about other topics there, so please make sure you guys check it out. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me. I love chopping it up with you about the draft and about our teams. It was a great time for sure. So thank you.
No problem. All right.
All right. See you guys later.
Okay, so for the first time in the history of the DMV Sports Zone, I'm going to give you guys 14 minutes to ask me any and every question you want about Washington football team, DMV Sports, NFL Draft, which is tomorrow night. Fire away. I see some questions earlier. I do see that the Wizards are winning tone, although the Lakers do not have LeBron James. So, and Anthony Davis is kind of rusty at this point, but I mean, it's still good. Still good. You like to see the Wizards winning. Just gonna scroll through all the other comments in the chat. AM Hunter, I agree. I think Washington has something up their sleeves for tomorrow. Whether it be, it doesn't have to be trading up all the way to 8 or even trading up at all to get a quarterback. I think maybe even with their pick number 19, they might go with a guy that nobody's projecting to them, and it might be a really good fit here in DC. I know Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is sort of like the perfect fit, right? Because Ron Rivera's been talking about a guy like Shaq Thompson for so long. So I think that'd be a great fit there. But and again, not Ryan Leaf. I don't see that. I see more of a Josh Allen. I really do. He has all the athletic traits, right? Doesn't have the greatest production in college, but I mean, does that always matter? I don't think so. We've seen quarterbacks in the past who haven't been good producers in college, like a Justin Herbert, who have very much panned out in the NFL. So I think a guy like Trey Lance, again, my twin, right? Same birth date and everything. I think it reminds me a lot more of a Josh Allen. And I think he will be a very good quarterback. I'm not as high on him as a guy like Rico from Street Scores, who's been on the channel plenty of times before. And I know you guys love his insight about the Washington football team. But I think he's going to be a very good player in this league. I don't know if you guys saw the video on Twitter about him talking about his experience at North Dakota State. And yeah, it just seems like he has a good head on his shoulders and will be a good fit here in DC, and is definitely someone who's not immature, like Dwayne Haskins, who definitely flops here in DC. But yeah, Tommy Tremble, 3rd round pick. In terms of the tight end position, I think we could tackle the tight end position in the 3rd round. I also like a guy like Pat F. I can never pronounce his last name correctly. Freiermuth from Penn State would be a good 3rd round pick. Brevin Jordan, who I heard is falling on draft boards from Miami, would be a good 3rd round pick option. But I definitely think, unlike last year where you had a guy like, I don't know if you guys heard, Hunter Bryant actually got released. I believe it was the same Hunter Bryant that a lot of fans hyped up as a tight end prospect last year. He got released actually only after one season in NFL. So the tight end crop last year was not very good, but this year it seems like it's pretty decent. So hopefully we can get one of those guys and pair that guy up with Logan Thomas. And I know everybody's high on Samus Reyes, but guys, I mean, how many times have we seen guys with athletic traits who haven't panned out here in DC? I really don't care how athletic you are. I was one of those people. Go look at the tape on this channel. I was one of those people who had nothing to say about Dwayne Haskins and his Instagram videos, his workout video. I saw it all over Twitter. We got to be honest, guys. Everybody was hyping it up and saying, even a guy like Louis Riddick, who's so reliable usually when it comes to quarterback predictions and stuff. I was not one of those people. I literally didn't say anything. He's a quarterback. It doesn't really matter if he loses weight. I don't care. I want to see accuracy. I want to see football IQ. Dwayne Haskins didn't show that. So, I mean, that's a little bit off from what we were talking about with the athletic traits with Samus Reyes. But all I'm saying is that you could lose the weight. You could build the muscle. But at the end of the day, football is football, and just because you're the biggest, best athletic specimen doesn't mean you're going to be the greatest of football players. Sometimes, occasionally, you get a guy like a Kyle Pitts, right, who has everything, right? The athletic traits, the high IQ, the route running, the strength, everything you want out of an NFL tight end. Occasionally, you have a guy like that, but that doesn't usually come around every single year. Asmodeus. Sorry, I probably butchered your first name. I apologize. But Jose was on for the first half of the live stream, as I promised early on in the stream. But I believe you just arrived. But he was on for the first half. So if you want to play it back and listen to our part, I mean, it was really, really fun. So I strongly suggest you do that. But yeah, he had to go. He had some work on his end. But it was great to have him on me even for 30, 35 minutes. And I made sure to dedicate this half to, the fact that there's a draft tomorrow night and there's a team called the Washington football team, right? That, is going to participate in that draft. So I thought might as well save some time to basically answer anybody's questions about the Washington football team and what they're going to do. I mean, I could also answer Ravens questions. I'm not a super expert, but as a DM native, I mean, I do know some things about the Ravens and do watch them. So you guys can ask me about the Ravens as well, and appreciate that. Yeah. He was on for a good 35 minutes. So strongly suggest, once again, go back, watch it. You're gonna love it, and make sure to go sub him up. I mean, you probably already did if you're asking for him, but yeah, it was great 35 minutes. And I mean, yeah, we do need to let him learn. We do. Honestly, I could see him panning out just as much as I can see him being a preseason cut. Like, a lot of people don't realize that, but I mean, Thaddeus Moss was another tight end. I know he's completely opposite, doesn't have the athletic tools, but a lot of people that thought he had the it factor of a tight end in this league. I just think you got to wait and see, right? You got to have that wait and see approach when it comes to these young guys. And again, just because you have the athletic tools doesn't mean you're going to pan out in this league. We've seen so many guys like Rico Gathers from the Dallas Cowboys. So a couple of years back, everybody was hyping as a next great tight end, right? From, I believe, Baylor at the time. And he had the basketball hops. He was a former Baylor basketball player. And everybody was hyping him up, and he did nothing in the league. I know Brandon Williams, Cowboys fan. I know Cowboys fan, but Cowboys fan. I do support him though. Brandon Williams, very good guy. I know he might talk about it in the chat about the fact that Rico Gathers did not pan out, and you should not only rely on athletic attributes at the tight end position, or really across the roster on an NFL team. So, yes, I am a die-hard Washington football team fan. They were the Redskins. Now they're the Washington football team. I don't care. I'm still a fan. I'm a diehard fan. Make content about them. Appreciate you stopping by. And hopefully, eventually, I'll get your first name right. But yeah, I appreciate that. Go make sure to smash the like button and the sub button if you haven't already. Trying to put out some good content on here. But again, this is sort of just the Q&A. I don't think I've ever done this on the channel just by myself, but I think it's right, coming into the night before the draft and answering all your guys' questions. But I'm just looking back at the chat. Hazim, I don't know if you left, bro, but the Jaguars, what will they do with Trevor? I think they could be pretty good. I know everybody, even myself, don't like the comments that Trevor put out about him not being so motivated to win a Super Bowl and all that. I don't really want to hear that out of the quarterback, and to me that kind of exudes privilege. But I think they're gonna be really good. You know, Trevor Lawrence, he's had that same mentality, that same attitude since he's been a youngin', and look where that's gotten him. His high school career was amazing. His college career was amazing. He's a national champion, Heisman Trophy runner-up this year. I mean, I think the Jaguars can be really good. Urban Meyer, while you can say whatever you want about him at Ohio State and all the off the field stuff, he is a great coach. And I think the Jaguars, a lot of people are sleeping on the receiving core, which is actually pretty good. A guy like Laviska Shenault, got a guy like DJ Chark, who was injured last year, but it still has a lot of talent. And I believe he's already a 1,000-yard receiver in one of his last couple of years. So I think the Jaguars are looking pretty good. James Robinson, a lot of people are sleeping on as well. Very, very solid running back. If you had fantasy football last year, if you were in a league, you know about him. And I think the Jaguars offense is definitely going to take off. Their offensive line is actually not that bad. A lot of people sleep on that as well. Their defense does need some work, but I think they have a lot of picks, right? So I think they could address that a little bit this year. I don't think they're going to be anything better than potentially what the Cardinals were in Kyler Murray's first year. Actually, I'll say better. Maybe like a 7-9 record. That's the peak, the maximum, but probably more like a 6-10. Well, not 17 games, so maybe like a 6-11 type of season for the Jaguars, and maybe a 7-10 type of season. But I think after this year, the Jaguars, things are looking up for them. And man, Trevor Lawrence, right, just fell in their laps. The Jets didn't tank successfully. Although Zach Wilson, again, guys, go check the receipts, man. Zach Wilson has been, before anybody projected him as the number 2 overall pick in the draft, before anybody thought he was a better prospect than Justin Fields. Late September 2020, I came on this show and talked about how big of a Zach Wilson fan I was and how I thought he was the second best quarterback in this class, if not the best quarterback in this class. Late September 2020. And I'm still that high on him. I think he has all the tools you want out of a quarterback. He has the mobility, the arm strength, the arm talent, period. Although something that does worry me, I didn't even realize until later in the season, was he wasn't even named a captain last year as a quarterback on the BYU team, right? That isn't stacked with a lot of players. And he wasn't named the captain even as the quarterback. So that does hurt a little bit. But I think in terms of pure talent, Zach Wilson is everything you want out of a quarterback. I mean, a guy like Chris Sims, who's been right on so many quarterback predictions over the last couple of years, had him as his number 1 quarterback prospect, even ahead of a guy like Trevor Lawrence. So I think Zach Wilson is a stud. He will be a stud in this league, and will be really good. It's going to be him and Trevor Lawrence for the next, hopefully, a decade, right? Hopefully they both pan out and they're really good. But I do see some other comments. Who do I want at 19, Brandon? Who do I want at 19? A lot of people are talking about Michael Parsons. And let's just put the hypothetical out there that he does fall to 19. I am more worried than, I guess, anybody else about his off-the-field things, off-the-field concerns. I know a guy like Gross Matos, the Penn State receiver, is also like tied up in those allegations. That didn't affect his stock or anything, but I mean, Michael Parsons has been very, very problematic off the field over the last couple of years. He shows a lot of immaturity, and I will say this: on this April, 28th, the night before the draft, I would be super surprised if Washington drafts Michael Parsons tomorrow night. Not just only because, I don't see him falling to 19, but also I just don't think he's a Ron Rivera type of guy. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is more of a Ron Rivera type guy. He's more of that Shaq Thompson type of guy that I talked about earlier in the stream with Jose. And I think it'd be a great fit here. Jabril Cox, maybe, as Patrick West notes here. Maybe not in 19, but in the second round, third round, I think it would be a great fit here in DC out of LSU, I believe. And but yeah, honestly, the Washington football team right now has very few needs on the team. I would say the biggest need by far, and again, one of those things that I've been talking about since like earlier than a lot of media guys, right? Since September, October. Linebacker is our biggest need. Okay, I know quarterback is something that we want to get shored up, but we're talking about need, not want, not desire. Linebacker is our biggest need. And yeah, Michael Parsons, I mean, he isn't the greatest in coverage. A lot of people don't realize that, but he's more of a blitz type of guy at linebacker position, which would be great, right? Would rack up the sacks, much like Devin White had last year with that 9 sacks as the middle linebacker of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we need more of that pass coverage guy. And I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a great fit, man. He's great in pass coverage. Isn't that great of a run stopper, but then again, when we got a guy who a lot of people are sleeping on, Matt Ioannidis, back this season on that defensive line, I think the run stopping with that line will be very good. And a lot of people don't realize this, but before Matt Ioannidis went down, this Washington football team was arguably the best rush stopping defense in the league. When he went down, it went down to, I believe, 18th or 19th for a good part of the season. Like, a lot of people are forgetting how big of a contributor Matt Ioannidis is to this team. I've been saying for almost the last year, right? It's almost coming up. A year is almost coming up on this channel, actually, which is kind of crazy. But I remember even saying last year, I think Matt Ioannidis is still, once he's come back from an injury and he's fully healthy, I still think he's our best defensive lineman. And he didn't even play for, 14, 13 games last year. So I think NFL offensive lines have a lot of work cut out for them once he returns. And yeah, again, Jock makes a lot of sense. Heineken, I liked what he had in that performance against Tampa Bay, obviously, like everyone else did. Heineke, as our boy Chase Young said. I also was one of those few people who called into 106.7 The Fan that Tuesday, I believe, before that Bucks game and said, I mean, everybody was like, oh, start Alex Smith. He has the leadership and all. Alex Smith was a shell of himself towards the end of the season, really the entire season, if we're going to be honest. His mobility was just shot. By the way, speaking of Alex Smith, please, I beg of you, well, not beg, I'm not going to beg, but go watch the last video of Alex Smith. It's titled, Alex Smith, we appreciate you, but please stop. That's all I have to say about that. Go watch it. Trust me, you're going to like it if you haven't already. But with Alex Smith, he looked completely shot last year towards the end of the season. His mobility was not good. I wasn't even a big fan of him in 2018 because I thought the defense was carrying us to a lot of wins. I know Brandon's not going to like that I'm saying that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Like, I mean, last year, everybody talks about how Alex Smith, the great thing about him is that he doesn't turn over the ball, right? Just check down Alex, right? But doesn't turn over the ball. Last year, he had 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. So I don't even want to hear that, right? And then you combine that with the mobility, the lack of mobility last year. So I liked Heineke a lot. I was, again, one of those people called into 106.7 The Fan that week and actually said that I believe Heineke, I think I said he should start. If not, Alex Smith starts at the beginning. But if he doesn't pan out, then Taylor Heineke should, like that, enter the game. But I liked what I saw out of him, but it's a limited sample size. And the thing about Heineke, he can never, ever stay healthy. That's the problem with it. So if you're going to trust him to be your starting quarterback for a 16-game stretch, I don't see how that's gonna be a good thing for your football team. Yeah, again, Jabril Cox would be a good get in the second round, if not later. Some sleepers. Christensen, I've heard a lot about him out of BYU. Speaking of BYU, right, we got Zach Wilson, but Christensen, one of Zach Wilson's offensive linemen in college, is a very good guy, very good player. Paulson Adebo, I don't know what happened to him. I remember last year when I was doing some this was before like the mock drafts of 2021 were a thing, but like on Madden, right, you have the franchise mode and obviously you can import draft classes and all that. And Adebo was like a first round talent, if I'm not mistaken, or at least he was picking in the second round, third round consistently whenever I did like franchise mode. But he always had that hidden talent, right, that would ultimately pan out to be a first round talent in the end. But I don't know what happened to him. Potentially could be a sleeper at cornerback, I believe, here in DC, and we could always add depth to the position. Obviously, we have a guy like William Jackson III. We also have a guy like Kendall Fuller, our boy from the DMV, but also Jimmy Moreland, of course. But I think we could still add depth there. And Jonathan Adams as well, wide receivers. There's a lot of sleeper wide receivers in this class, as there's been the last couple of years, guys. I think we're in for consistently good receiving classes for the next couple of years, really. It's just the talent is just all there, right? It's a passing league. So obviously, you know, the quarterbacks, again, next year, we talked about this extensively when Jose was on the channel, but next year, the quarterback class is not looking too hot whatsoever. Especially when you have a guy like the Oklahoma quarterback as the number one pick who hasn't really showed much to be worthy of that number one pick thus far. But the wide receivers have been top notch for the last couple of years. And I'm looking forward to potentially drafting another Terry type of stud in the third round, maybe in the second round. Elijah Moore is another guy that I've seen who's gotten a lot of draft buzz over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully we could get one of those guys, and Washington could be in for a very good first round, very good second round, very good third round, very good fourth round, very good draft period. And yeah, I'm not really. Well, I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to jinx anything, but I mean, the current staff that Ron Rivera has right now, especially with Marty Herney, a lot of people forget. I mean, he's hit it out of the park when it comes to early round draft picks, first, second round, third round. I don't know if you guys saw the graphic on Twitter earlier this week, but there was a stat. They basically counted the number of all pros that teams have drafted over the last decade, I believe. And I think the Panthers were number 1 or number 2. Washington was number 32. And now all that staff that was on the Panthers, pretty much, right, that last decade when the Panthers were actually really good, are here in DC. So I'm not too worried about the early round draft picks. It's just the late round draft picks we'll see. Although you also have a guy like a Josh Norman who was drafted in the 5th round, I believe, in Carolina. And you have some other guys as well. So we'll see, man. It's gonna be a fun night tomorrow night. I got some work to do though before that. But it's gonna be a fun night tomorrow night. I mean, it's been a long time coming, a couple months now. We've been just talking about all these picks, and doing mock drafts. And again, I'm sorry that I couldn't give you guys all the content, and I know you were craving and stuff. But we talk about all these guys coming here in DC, and we got a glimpse or a taste of that right during the free agency period. How months of talk turn into just great results. Hopefully that could happen with this draft, and we just hit it out of the park once again with our draft picks, and not do a whole Dwayne Haskins type of situation, which I don't think will happen because the owner, for all the mess that he's caused this franchise, I think at this point Ron Rivera is the guy. Ron Rivera is the guy. He's Riverboat Ron. He is the man here in DC, and I don't think anything is going to stop him from doing what is right for this franchise and getting it right back on the map, right back to where it was when he was playing in Chicago for the Bears and Washington was winning Super Bowls 10 years before I was born, but like 10 plus years really. But yeah, I think Ron Rivera and co have a lot of great things in store for this weekend, and I'm just looking forward to it, guys. But I'm just looking for any last questions before I sign off for tonight. Any of you guys want to ask one more question before I go, or I guess we could call it a night. Let me look through. I don't understand this comparison. I really don't. Fields is not a Cam Newton type of guy to me. I really don't understand that. Like, if you're going to go Cam Newton, go with a guy like a Trey Lance, who has the actual build of a Cam Newton. Justin Fields he's not super tall. He's not super bulky. Like, I really don't understand that comparison. Justin Fields is also a better passer. Even with Cam Newton being the number 1 pick, right? It's kind of crazy. It shows you how stacked the quarterback class is this year, with Justin Fields probably being 3rd, 4th quarterback pick, if not 5th. But yeah, I really don't understand this comparison. I really don't. And that's awesome, Patrick. I'm just hopeful that Washington will return to their winning ways. I mean, everybody talks about how we won the division last year, but we were still 7-9. So hopefully we return to our winning ways consistently and give especially the younger fans something to cheer for, man. Because, man, I can't tell you the number of times I was made fun of for being a Redskins fan growing up, just because of how bad they've been over the years. And if they become really good, man, this area is going to go crazy. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, AM Hunter. I appreciate that as always, bro. And your support with all these videos. And with that being said, I'm going to end the stream right now, almost getting to that hour mark. Thank you guys so much so much. Wow. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, this live stream, Washington Football Team, Washington Football Weekly. Appreciate it so much. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMV Sports Zone channel, where we try to post fire content on here as much as possible. Also, go follow our Instagram page, all lowercase DMV Sports Zone, and our Twitter page at DMV Sports Zone, where we try to post fire content on there as much as possible as well. With that being said, have a great night, guys. And okay, see Blue JJ, can you read my last comment? Are you talking about the Cornell Powell comment or the Melifonwu comment? Sorry, is it the Melifonwu comment? I'm assuming it's this because I don't know Cornell Powell, and you're probably asking him Hunter that. Yeah, man. I mean, he would be. I've seen a couple of highlights. He would be a cheat code for this defense. And again, we could always add very good studs to that secondary. But I think at this point, linebacker, we have to address that first. Linebacker, and I know Ron Rivera knows this, Jack Del Rio knows this as former linebackers. We got to address that position first. Maybe even add 2 linebackers in this year's draft. And after that, we could start worrying about the cornerbacks and safeties and all the secondary guys. Because I think once we get the linebacker position solved, like Chris Cooley said before, I think it was like a couple games into last season, once we get that linebacker on this defense, that linebacker, maybe close to like a Luke Kuechly type of guy, just a captain type of guy, period, right? Like a London Fletcher type of guy. Once we get that type of linebacker in the middle of this defense, man, best defense in the league. Best defense in the league. And I get it, Outlaw Kings. We talked about this earlier. Michael Parsons has all the talent in the world, right? Out of the linebacker position. Not even first round, top 10 talent. I worry more than most people about his off the field stuff. And if you don't know about his off the field stuff, or at least you don't know the extent of it, maybe you've heard some rumbles here and there, go look it up. It's disturbing. I am very unsure about Michael Parsons, and I am pretty sure that he won't be a member of the Washington Football Team by tomorrow night. Although, things could surprise us, and Ron Rivera always has a trick up his sleeve, so we'll see. But yeah, so I see Outlaw joined and Blue Jays greeting him. But yeah, that's it, guys, for this stream. Thank you guys so much for joining. I get some work done. Yeah, everybody does deserve a second chance, but I mean, Michael Parsons, that's 1, 2, 3 chances at this point. I mean, again, look up his history. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Again, we're hitting the year mark on this channel, and I know I haven't been super consistent, but I mean, this channel isn't, it's something to have fun with for all of us, and just to talk about our teams. And what more do you want, right? Like for me, this is just super fun to just talk to you guys, engage with you guys, in this new virtual world. So appreciate you guys so much for the support, and I'm gonna sign off and have a great rest of your night, and hopefully some more content is on the way soon, especially with the draft. So peace out. I don't know why. I always forget to actually end the broadcast and not leave the studio. It's a Zoom habit. All right. See you guys.